McGillicuddy and Murderer's Pawn Shop, Episode 22. The Murderers Meet. September 28th, 1921. Continued. I stared down at the watch. From inside the face, behind the delicate, ticking hands, Mr. McGillicuddy continued to shout at me. "You have been betrayed! You must leave the city at once. You must never come back." The phrases began to loop, and I realized that Mr. McGillicuddy had left this watch here as a message for me. He wasn't miraculously contained inside the pocket watch. It was pre-recorded somehow, almost like a motion picture, but with color and sound. I shut the watch, and his shouts faded with a click. I sat down on the bank and watched the ugly, oily water of the river swim along. Behind me, children shouted in the park. A bird sang in the tree. How dare they behave as though everything was normal? Didn't they know the world had been turned upside down? Our ordinary days are always the worst day of someone else's life. Our ordinary days might be the best day of someone else's life, too, but I was in a dour mood, so I didn't think about that. I've had these days before, where my world has ended, but everyone else's just keeps spinning on. It's the strangest thing in the world. I held the pocket watch and I didn't move. Remember what I said before about sitting? I was ready for a long, long sit. I was ready to turn into a statue, here on this riverbank, because I didn't want to take action. I wouldn't get to say goodbye to Ariana. I would never find out what Noble James had meant to tell me. Noble James. Was he the cause of this disaster? Had I, in fact, walked into a trap, and now all was lost? Should I be in Russia at this very moment, training my bones for unendurable cold? When a master like Mr. McGillicuddy tells you to run, you ought to run. But I didn't want to. So instead of choosing between my heart and his wisdom, I sat. I suppose you think me a great coward, diary. It's all right. Go ahead. But this is my life's greatest weakness. I doubt life so deeply that I'm afraid to venture into it. I was still sitting on the bank, still wasting precious time, still wondering if I should leave now and never come back, when a sudden longing for Ariana's friendship came over me. I missed her. I knew then that I couldn't leave without saying goodbye, even if it meant ending up in the hands of the night enthusiasts. I got up, feeling cheered. Knowing what you want to do, and then acting on it, is its own kind of medicine. My anxiety melted, and I felt a sense of peace. Mr. McGillicuddy would call me a fool, but I was going back to the pawn shop tonight. Perhaps I would run into the man from the train car, and perhaps he would murder me with his wooden puppet eye. But at least I would be able to say goodbye to Ariana. I felt a strength in the pit of my stomach. People are what matter. People are what give you the courage to do things. I'd been without a family or true friends for so long, I'd forgotten that. I went to the most boring place on earth, a hole-in-the-wall lunch shop that all but shuts down after 4 p.m., and I ate a sandwich, and tried not to look too hard at my soup, and I sat. I had to wait until tonight, until the pawn shop closed, and then I would talk to Ariana, and in all likelihood, never come back. It was too dangerous to visit Noble James again, not only because of the old man crying murder, but because of Mr. McGillicuddy's message. If someone had betrayed me, I felt fairly certain it was Noble. It was sad. I'd felt a connection to him, but I supposed I would never see him again. After the lunch shop shut down at 8 p.m., I wandered outside, took a deep breath, and teleported. I landed in the main lobby of McGillicuddy and Murders. Standing right there, staring at me, was the man from the train car. It felt like fate. I stayed where I was. "Hello," he said, in an odd voice. "You're the one who let me out." I decided to be civil. How did you know it was me? And inside, my brain stammered, "He's a murderer, he's a murderer, he's a murderer." "Oh, I can tell," he said. He reached out and grasped the air. "I had a sort of sense of your face when I was being let out. It was wonderful." "Oh," I said. "So thank you," he said. He grinned. His teeth protruded, and he looked like a fox. "What's your name?" I said. "Hester Rathbone, but you can call me Rath." "Maude Merkel," I said. I felt like sitting down. "What are you doing here, Rath?" "Oh, I've been waiting for the people who put me in that train car," he said. "Are they coming here?" I said. "They must be," he said. "They don't really want me out and about." "Rath," I said, "why were you imprisoned in there?" His face began to twitch. The wooden eye rolled so fast it was a blur of color. "Did you commit a crime?" I said. "Did you murder someone?" Rath looked up, his single human eye gleaming. "Oh, I'm not a murderer," he said, "but I will be. You spend 3 years in a little wooden box, and you don't really like people anymore." "I don't really like people anymore." "Who imprisoned you?" I said. "The night enthusiasts," he said. "The night enthusiasts." "Why?" At that moment he cocked his head. He sniffed. "Someone's coming." "How can you—" "Shh, shh. Secret skill. I know someone is coming." He suddenly seized me, so hard I'd have a ring of bruises around my arm. He drew me into a dark corner. "Shh, shh," he said. "Let's just stay here together, you and I." I could hear his wooden eye clicking and rolling behind me. "Let's see who it is." It was Ariana. She teleported into much the same spot that I had, landing in view of the entire pawnshop. She tucked her hair behind her ears, looking around. "Maude," she hissed. "Maude! Are you in yet?" I knew nothing about Rath, except that he'd been imprisoned by the night enthusiasts, and that he claimed he hadn't killed anyone. Technically, I had no reason to doubt him. I had no reason to fear him. He said he wasn't a murderer, but I felt sure, as his wooden eye rattled from side to side, that he was hunting Ariana. He was the predator. She was the tiny brown creature, about to split open in blood and fur. Trembling, I whispered to Rath, "She's all right. She's my friend. She doesn't mean us any harm." Rath began to chuckle, slowly and softly, in a way that made my blood feel wrong inside my veins. "She wants to kill you, little one," he said. "Shut up," I said. "I've had enough of this. Let go of me. If you want to go murder the night enthusiasts, be my guest, but leave my friend out of it." In response, Rath let go of me. But he didn't slip further into the shadows. He strode out, his black and red coat billowing softly. He removed his top hat and held it in the crook of his arm. He strode towards Ariana with a spring in his step. As soon as Ariana saw him, she paused, horror etched into her face. She recognized him, and I realized, with a sick feeling in my stomach, that she didn't just recognize the man from the train car. She recognized Rath as a human man. "Hello, Ariana," Rath said. Ariana's eyes flickered over to me. She took a breath, nostrils flaring. Then she swore. I strode out from the shadows. "Ariana," I said. Rath and Ariana both stared at each other. He was gleeful. She was defeated. "Have you met?" I said. "Oh, Ariana and I know each other very well," Rath said. "From before I ended up in that train car. Don't we know each other, Ariana?" She swerved her eyes away from his, looking sullen. "How?" I said. Ariana stared at me, and her eyes suddenly filled up with tears. She opened her mouth like she wanted to speak, and then she shut it. "Didn't you know?" Raph said. "Ariana is a night enthusiast." We hope you've enjoyed episode 22, The Murderers Meet, of McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop is written and performed by Minerva Sweeney Wren, all rights reserved. Please subscribe, share it with your friends, and support Minerva Sweeney Wren at patreon.com/SweeneyWren. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop will continue next week with episode 23, Betrayed.